Evelyn Sterling did not believe in luck. She believed in leverage, logistics, and the ruthless application of will. At 41, she was the CEO of Sterling Aerospace, a company she had dragged from the brink of bankruptcy to the pinnacle of the Fortune 500. She wore her success like armor, tailored Italian suits, a gaze that could freeze water, and a schedule calibrated to the second. Heathrow Airport's first-class lounge was her natural habitat. It was quiet, expensive, and smelled of filtered air and old money. Evelyn sat by the window, a flute of sparkling water untouched beside her, her thumb scrolling through a terrifyingly complex spreadsheet on her tablet. She was firing her VP of operations via email. He had missed a projection by 0.4%. In Evelyn's world, margins were survival. Miss Sterling, her assistant, a young man named Connor who looked perpetually terrified, approached. The private jet is still grounded due to the mechanical issue. We've secured you the last seat in first class on the commercial flight to New York. It's not optimal, but it will get you to the merger meeting. Fine, Evelyn said, not looking up. As long as I can work. I don't care how I get there, just that I get there before the Asians markets open. She stood up, the click of her heels on the marble floor sounding like gunshots. She moved through the terminal with the grace of a predator. She was a woman who owned the space she occupied. Lucas Bennett occupied space as if he were renting it by the minute and was behind on payments. At 39, Lucas looked 10 years older. His face was a map of hard living, sun lines around his eyes, a permanent shadow of stubble, and a scar running through his left eyebrow that gave him a rugged, slightly dangerous look. But it was his hands that told the real story. They were large, calloused, and stained with the permanent grease of heavy machinery that no amount of scrubbing could remove. He stood in the boarding line, shifting his weight from one work boot to the other. He wore a faded Carhartt jacket that had seen better decades and a pair of jeans worn white at the knees. He looked like what he was, a man who fixed things that other people broke. He checked his phone, a Model 3 generations old with a cracked screen. A text from his sister, Sarah, Lily is asking for you again. She's coughing. Don't worry, just get home. Lucas felt the familiar constriction in his chest. Lily, his 7-year-old daughter, his entire world. The reason he was standing in this line, exhausted, after a 6-week contract repairing oil rigs in the North Sea. The pay was good, fast money, enough to cover the next round of specialists for Lily's asthma and the therapy for her hearing loss. But the cost was absence. Sir, the gate agent blinked at him. Your ticket. Lucas handed over the crumpled boarding pass. He had bought economy, the cheapest non-refundable fare. The machine beeped red. Hang on, the agent said, typing rapidly. Looks like we overbooked economy. Since you're a solo traveler. She looked him up and down, her nose wrinkling slightly at the smell of industrial soap and diesel that clung to him. We have to bump you. Bump me. Lucas's grip tightened on his duffel bag. Ma'am, I have to get to New York tonight. My daughter. Bump you up, she corrected, clearly annoyed that she was giving a premium seat to a man dressed for a construction site. Seat 2B. First class. Boarding is to your left. Lucas let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Thanks, he muttered. He didn't care about the champagne or the legroom. He just needed to get home to Lily. Evelyn was already seated in 2A, organizing her workspace. Laptop open, noise-canceling headphones ready, documents arranged in a precise fan. Then, a shadow fell over her tray table. She looked up and immediately felt a spike of irritation. The man standing in the aisle looked like he had taken a wrong turn on his way to a bus station. He was broad-shouldered, filling the aisle, his jacket stained with oil. He was wrestling a battered duffel bag into the overhead bin with a grunt. Great, Evelyn thought. The airline's algorithm has failed. Lucas sat down in 2B. The leather seat groaned under his weight. He felt absurdly soft. He kept his elbows tucked in, trying to make himself small. He knew how he looked. He knew how women like the one next to him. Ice blonde hair, sharp features, diamonds that cost more than his truck, saw him. He was invisible labor. The help. He pulled out his phone to text Sarah, on the plane. Home, in 8 hours. Kiss the bug for me. Evelyn watched him out of the corner of her eye. She saw the grease under his fingernails. She saw the cheap phone. She saw the way he sighed, a sound of bone-deep exhaustion. Excuse me, Evelyn said, her voice cool and crisp. Lucas turned, startled. Yeah. Could you possibly put your belongings further away? She gestured vaguely at his jacket, which he had folded on his lap. It smells of hydraulic fluid. Lucas finished for her. His voice was a low rumble, gravelly but calm. Sorry, ma'am. It's clean, just stains. Doesn't come out. I'm sure, she said, turning back to her screen. She didn't mask her disdain. To her, he was an inefficiency, a disruption in her controlled environment. It's remarkable who they let up front these days. Lucas stiffened. He had heard worse. He had been mocked by foremen, dismissed by doctors, and pitted by teachers. A rich woman in a fancy suit was nothing new. Just trying to get home to my kid, Lucas said quietly, turning toward the window. We all have places to be, Evelyn snapped. Some of us just managed to dress for the occasion. Lucas didn't reply. He closed his eyes. Let her judge, he thought. Her judgment doesn't pay Lily's medical bills. My hands do. The flight took off smoothly. The heavy Airbus A330 climbed through the cloud layer, leveling off at 36,000 feet over the Atlantic. The seatbelt sign pinged off. Evelyn worked. She was a machine of productivity. She drank her sparkling water and dismantled a competitor's proposal. Lucas did not work. He stared at the photo on his lock screen. It was Lily, missing her 2 front teeth, holding a wrench he had given her as a toy. She was smiling, but her eyes were tired. She was a fighter, just like her mom had been. I miss you, Sarah, he thought, sending a silent message to his late wife. I'm trying so hard. The flight attendant, a kind woman named Maria, came by with the dinner service. Champagne, Miss Sterling? Please, Evelyn said. And for you, sir? Maria asked Lucas. Just water, Lucas said. And maybe. Do you have any extra pretzels? I skipped lunch. Evelyn let out a short, sharp sigh of annoyance. Lucas looked at her. Bothering you? The crunching will, she muttered. I'll chew soft, he said, a hint of dry humor in his voice. He ate the pretzels quickly, hunger winning over pride. He hadn't eaten a real meal in 2 days, saving his per diem to buy Lily a specific Lego set she wanted. So, Evelyn said, suddenly deciding to address the elephant in the room. She needed a distraction from a difficult paragraph in her report. What is it you do? Construction? Plumbing? Mechanic, Lucas said. Heavy machinery. Rigs, mostly. Honorable work, she said, the word honorable dripping with condescension. I suppose someone has to keep the gears turning so the rest of us can drive the economy. Something like that, Lucas said. He didn't tell her he had a master's degree in aeronautical engineering. He didn't tell her he used to test experimental aircraft for the Air Force. He didn't tell her he was one of the only men alive who had landed a C-130 on a carrier deck in a hurricane. That life belonged to Commander Lucas Bennett. That man died the day his wife, Elena, died of cancer while he was deployed on a classified mission. He had come home to a funeral and a motherless daughter. He had sworn on Elena's grave he would never put himself in a cockpit again. He would be safe. He would be present. He would be a dad. You have children? Lucas asked, trying to bridge the gap. God no, Evelyn scoffed. Children are chaos. My company is my legacy. Legacy doesn't hug you back when you're old, Lucas said softly. Evelyn glared at him. And poverty doesn't pay for nursing homes. I'll take my chances with the bank account. She put her headphones back on, effectively ending the conversation. Lucas turned back to the window, watching the sun dip below the curvature of the earth. It happened 3 hours into the flight. There was no explosion, no dramatic fireball, just a sound, a sickening thud-thud-thud, vibrating through the floorboards, followed by a high-pitched whine that abruptly cut off. The cabin lights flickered. The hum of the air conditioning died. Then, silence. Absolute, terrifying silence. The plane shuddered, a deep, metallic groan that felt like a beast dying. The nose pitched down. Not a gentle descent, but a drop. Gravity lurched. Evelyn's champagne glass slid off the table and shattered. What is that? Evelyn asked, her voice losing its polished edge. She pulled off her headphones. Why are the engines so quiet? Lucas sat up straight. His eyes were no longer tired. They were sharp, scanning the wing. Flame out, he whispered. Dual engine failure. Don't be ridiculous, Evelyn said, though her hands were trembling. Planes don't just lose both engines. Fuel contamination, or volcanic ash, or a computer glitch, Lucas said, his voice transforming. The gravel was gone, replaced by a steel core command tone. We're gliding. The intercom crackled. The pilot's voice was high, breathless, panic bleeding through the professional veneer. Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing technical difficulties. Please remain in your seats. Cabin crew, prepare for emergency descent. Then, the plane banked hard to the left. Too hard. He's stalling, Lucas noted, his eyes narrowing. He's fighting the stick. The hydraulics are sluggish. Stop it, Evelyn hissed. You're scaring people. You're just a mechanic, what do you know? I know that if he doesn't drop the nose to regain airspeed in the next 10 seconds, we're going to spin, Lucas said. He unbuckled his seatbelt. Sit down, Evelyn shouted. The sign is on. Lucas ignored her. He stood up in the tilting cabin, balancing on the balls of his feet like a surfer. He looked at the flight attendant, Maria, who was strapped into her jump seat, weeping. Maria, Lucas said, his voice cutting through the rising screams of the passengers. Who is flying this plane? Captain Miller, she sobbed. And First Officer Davis. But Davis, he had the fish. He's been sick in the lavatory for an hour. It's just Miller. The plane lurched again. A scream tore through the cabin. Lucas looked at the cockpit door. He looked at the window. The ocean was dark below, but the altimeter on the cabin screen showed them dropping past 20,000 feet fast. He thought of Lily. He thought of her waiting at the window for his truck to pull up. I promised I wouldn't fly. I promised I'd be safe. But if I don't fly, she grows up alone. Lucas looked down at Evelyn. The arrogance was gone from her face, replaced by the raw, naked terror of a woman realizing her net worth was zero in the face of physics. Stay here, Lucas ordered. Put your head down. He moved toward the cockpit. Lucas didn't knock. He punched the emergency access code into the keypad. A universal code he prayed hadn't changed since his service days. It hadn't. The door clicked open. The cockpit was a chaos of alarms. Pull up. Terrain. Stall. The auditory warnings were a cacophony of doom. Captain Miller was slumped over the yoke, unconscious. A massive bruise was forming on his temple where he had likely slammed into the side window during the initial violent turbulence. The plane was in a shallow dive, rolling right. Lucas didn't hesitate. He grabbed Miller by the shoulders and hauled him back, securing him as best he could. He slid into the pilot's seat. His hands, those greasy, scarred, unworthy hands, found the controls. Muscle memory, dormant for 7 years, roared back to life. He grabbed the yoke. It felt heavy, dead. The ram air turbine had deployed, giving them limited hydraulic power, but it was like steering a cement truck. Mayday, 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 Lucas said into the headset, his voice calm, flat, professional. This is Flight 402. Dual engine flameout. Captain is incapacitated. I have control. Flight 402. Air traffic control crackled back, faint and static-filled. State intentions. Who is this? This is Commander Lucas Bennett, USAF, retired, Lucas said. Squawking 7700. We are unable to restart engines. Request vectors to nearest diversion. There was a pause on the radio. Then, a different voice, an older controller. Commander Bennett? The ghost. Is that you? Yeah, it's me, Lucas said, wrestling the nose up. Save the reunion. Where can I put this thing down? Nearest land is the Azores. Lodges Field. You're 80 miles out. You're at 18,000 feet. You won't make the glide slope. Lucas scanned the instruments. The controller was right. They were dropping too fast. They would hit the water 20 miles short of the runway. I need to lighten the load, Lucas muttered. He toggled the fuel dump switch. Nothing happened. The electronic valves were dead. He looked out the window. The ocean was a black abyss waiting to swallow them. He thought of Evelyn Sterling in seat 2A. He thought of the 300 souls behind him. He thought of Lily. I'm not ditching in the dark, Lucas said. I'm making the field. It's impossible, Commander. Physics says no. Physics usually listens to me, Lucas said. I'm going to extend the glide. I need you to clear the airspace. Back in the cabin, Evelyn was hyperventilating. The plane was silent, save for the rush of wind. It was descending, but the violent shaking had stopped. The motion was smoother now, controlled. Maria, the flight attendant, crawled over to Evelyn. Is the mechanic flying the plane? Evelyn whispered, her eyes wide. He said he was Commander Bennett. Maria said, clutching her rosary. The pilot knew his name. Evelyn stared at the cockpit door. Bennett, the man she had mocked for eating pretzels. the man with the oil stains. He was up there, wrestling death with his bare hands. Inside the cockpit, Lucas was sweating. His arms burned. Without full hydraulics, keeping the nose up required immense physical strength. He was trading altitude for distance, riding the thin line between a glide and a stall. "Come on, you heavy pig," Lucas grunted. "Fly." At 5,000 feet, the lights of the Azores appeared on the horizon. A tiny string of pearls in the darkness. "Flight 402, you are coming in hot and low. Fire crews are rolling." "Roger," Lucas said. They were too low. The runway was still 5 miles out, and they were at 1,000 feet. Lucas made a choice. He retracted the flaps. It was suicide. It reduced drag but increased their stall speed to nearly 200 knots. If they hit the ground at this speed, the tires would explode and the gear would collapse. But it was the only way to reach the concrete. "Brace! Brace! Brace!" The command rang through the cabin. Evelyn buried her head in her knees, squeezing her eyes shut. She prayed to a God she hadn't spoken to in years. "If I live, I'll change. I promise." The runway rushed up. Lucas waited until the last possible second. 100 feet. 50 feet. Now, he whispered. He deployed the flaps. The plane ballooned up, bleeding off speed, converting that terrifying momentum into a momentary lift. It bought him the last few hundred yards. The rear wheels slammed into the tarmac. Boom. The plane bounced. Evelyn screamed. Lucas wrestled the yoke forward, forcing the nose down. The front gear slammed down. He stood on the brakes. Smoke poured from the wheels. The reversers didn't work. It was all brakes and friction. The end of the runway was approaching fast. Beyond it, a cliff drop into the sea. "Stop," Lucas growled. "Stop, damn it." The metal groaned. The smell of burning rubber filled the cockpit. The plane shuddered to a halt 10 feet from the gravel overrun. Silence returned. But this time, it was the silence of life. Lucas sat in the darkness of the cockpit, his hands shaking violently now that the adrenaline was fading. He pulled his hands off the yoke. They were cramping, locked into claws. He reached for his phone. He had a signal. He texted Sarah, "Landed. Late. I love you both." The evacuation was chaotic but successful. Slides deployed. Passengers slid down into the cool night air of the Azores. Evelyn stood on the tarmac, shivering in her thin silk blouse. The wind whipped her hair across her face. She watched as the paramedics carried the unconscious captain out. Then, Lucas emerged. He looked exhausted. He slid down the chute and landed heavily. He didn't look like a hero. He looked like a tired dad who just wanted to go to bed. Reporters were already there, local stringers who listened to emergency frequencies. They swarmed the passengers. "Who landed the plane?" someone shouted. Evelyn saw Lucas trying to slip away toward the buses, head down, pulling his collar up. She ran. She ran in her heels until one broke, and then she kicked them off and ran in her stockings. "Lucas," she shouted. He stopped and turned. His eyes were guarded. "You're alive," he said simply. "Good. You?" Evelyn struggled for breath. "You flew the plane. You're Commander Bennett." "I was," he said. "Now I'm just a mechanic who missed his connecting flight." "Why didn't you say anything?" she asked, tears pricking her eyes. "I treated you like dirt, and you saved my life." "You treated me like a mechanic," Lucas shrugged. "People judge what they see. I'm used to it." He turned to walk away, but she grabbed his arm. The fabric of his jacket was rough, stained with oil. She didn't care. "Wait," she said. "Please. Let me do something." "Let me?" "Ms. Sterling," Lucas said, looking at her hand on his arm. "I have a daughter in New York. She has a recital on Thursday. I have to find a way to get there. That's all I care about." "My jet," Evelyn said instantly. "My private jet. It's in London, but I'll have another one sent here. I will fly you anywhere you want. Tonight." Lucas looked at her. He saw the desperation in her eyes. Not the desperation of a CEO trying to network, but the desperation of a human being trying to balance the scales of her own soul. "Okay," Lucas said. For Lily. The flight on Evelyn's Gulfstream was different. There were only the two of them. Lucas sat in a plush leather armchair, staring at the high-resolution screen where he was video calling his daughter. "Daddy." Lily's face filled the screen. She was wearing pink pajamas and pointing to her ear. "My 8 is buzzing." Lucas signed to her as he spoke, his rough hands moving with surprising tenderness. "It's okay, Bug. Battery needs changing. Aunt Sarah can help. I'll be there soon." Did you bring the Lego? I will, Lucas promised. Evelyn watched from the other seat. She had never seen a man look at a child with that much adoration. It was a foreign language to her. When he hung up, Evelyn spoke. She's beautiful. She looks like her mom, Lucas said, rubbing his eyes. Cost a fortune to keep her healthy, but she's worth every cent. Is that why? Evelyn asked softly. Is that why you quit flying? Why you work the rigs? Flying doesn't pay as well as dangerous hazard pay on the rigs, Lucas said. And the Air Force. I was never home. When Elena got sick, I wasn't there. I was flying a sortie over the desert. She died while I was in the air. I promised I'd never choose the sky over my family again. But today I had no choice, Lucas said. If I didn't fly, Lily would be an orphan, and I promised Elena I'd raise her. Evelyn felt a crack in the armor she had built around her heart. She looked at this man, this poor, tired, incredible man, and felt a profound shame for every judgment she had made. I have a confession, Evelyn said. I fired a man this morning because he missed a target by a fraction of a percent. I told him his excuses didn't matter. Lucas looked at her. And here you are, she continued, working yourself to the bone, enduring insults from people like me, just to be a father. You are twice the man I will ever be. Don't put me on a pedestal, Evelyn, Lucas said. I'm just a guy trying to pay the rent. When they landed in New York, the media storm was waiting. The news had broken. The ghost of the Air Force returns to save Flight 402. Cameras flashed. Microphones were shoved in Lucas's face. He looked overwhelmed. Evelyn stepped in front of him. She raised a hand, her CEO persona activating. But this time, it was protective. Mr. Bennett has no comment at this time, she announced, her voice commanding the tarmac. He is a hero, and right now, his priority is his family. Sterling Aerospace will be handling all press inquiries on his behalf. Back off. She ushered him into her waiting limousine. Where to? The driver asked. Queens, Lucas said. Astoria. The ride was quiet. When they pulled up to a modest, slightly run-down apartment building, Lucas grabbed his duffel bag. Thank you for the ride, he said. Lucas, Evelyn said. She handed him a card. It wasn't her business card. It had her personal number handwritten on the back. Sterling Aerospace needs a chief of safety operations. The salary is substantial. No travel. 9 to 5. Full benefits for you and Lily. Best medical insurance in the country. Lucas looked at the card. I'm a mechanic, Evelyn. You are the best pilot I've ever seen, she said. And you understand the cost of failure. I need someone who cares about people, not just profits. Please, think about it. Lucas looked at the building where Lily was sleeping. He thought about the oil rigs, the weeks away, the constant fear of injury. Then he looked at the job offer that would let him be home every night to help with homework. I'll think about it, he said. 2 days later, Evelyn Sterling sat in the back row of a dusty elementary school auditorium. She felt overdressed in her blazer, but she stayed. On stage, a group of 7-year-olds were singing, You Are My Sunshine. In the front row, Lucas Bennett was filming with a brand new iPhone, a gift Evelyn had sent to his house along with the Lego set. When the song ended, Lily ran off the stage and jumped into Lucas's arms. He spun her around, burying his face in her neck. Evelyn walked up to them as the crowd thinned. Ms. Lady, Lily pointed at Evelyn. You gave me the Death Star. Evelyn smiled, a genuine, warm smile that felt strange on her face. I did. Did you build it? Daddy helped, Lily beamed. Lucas stood up, holding Lily's hand. He looked different. Shaved, rested, wearing a clean button-down shirt. I thought about your offer, Lucas said. And I can't take charity, he said. It's not charity, Evelyn said firmly. I had my HR department run the vetting. You are overqualified. And frankly, I need a conscience. The board agrees. If you don't take the job, I have to hire some Ivy League kid who thinks a wrench is an app. Lucas looked at Lily. Does the insurance cover cochlear implants? 100%, Evelyn said. And the office has a daycare center. Lucas extended his hand. The calluses were still there, but the grease was gone. Deal, he said. Evelyn took his hand. It was warm and strong. Deal, she said. 6 months later. The gala for the Bennett Foundation for Single Parents was the event of the season. Evelyn Sterling stood at the podium, looking out at the glittering crowd of New York's elite. Success, she began, her voice steady, used to mean numbers to me. It meant efficiency. It meant never having to say sorry. She looked to the side of the stage. Lucas was there, looking dashing in a tuxedo that actually fit. Lily was sitting on his lap, wearing a dress with too many sequins, coloring in a coloring book. Then I met a man who taught me that the most important metric is who shows up when the engines fail. Evelyn continued. He taught me that dirty hands often belong to the purest hearts. She raised her glass. To Lucas Bennett, my chief operations officer. My partner. The crowd applauded. Lucas stood up, waving awkwardly. He hated the spotlight, but he tolerated it for the cause. Later that night, on the balcony overlooking the city, Lucas loosened his tie. You gave a good speech, he said. I had a good muse, Evelyn replied. She leaned against the railing next to him. You know, the press is speculating. About what? Us. They call it the billionaire and the blue-collar hero romance. Lucas chuckled. I'm hardly blue-collar anymore. Have you seen my office chair? It has lumbar support. Don't let it go to your head, she teased. She turned to face him. The air between them was charged. It wasn't the frantic adrenaline of the cockpit, but the slow, steady burn of mutual respect and deepening affection. Lucas, Evelyn said, her voice dropping. I'm still learning how to do this. The family thing. The relationship thing. I'm messy at it. You're learning, Lucas said. He reached out and took her hand. You came to the recital. You learned sign language for Lily. You're doing fine. I don't want to be alone at the top anymore, she admitted, the vulnerability terrifying her. Good, Lucas said, stepping closer. Because I'm not planning on going anywhere. He kissed her. It was a kiss that tasted of champagne and second chances. It was a promise that no matter how high they flew, or how hard the turbulence got, they would land the plane together. Inside the ballroom, Lily watched through the glass, giggled, and went back to coloring. Her dad was happy, and the nice lady was smiling. Everything was going to be just fine.